Good. Okay. So when I was younger, I decided that I never wanted to work another day in my life. Just didn't want to work. It's not that I didn't want to be a contributing member of society. It's not that I didn't want to do things or create things. It's just that I didn't want it to ever feel like work. I wanted work to be fun. I don't want to throw away a third of my life to something I hate doing. I want to enjoy what I do. So when I was young and it came to chores or things that you typically don't like doing, I turned them into games personally. So if I had to clean up my room, it was a big adventure where I had to collect all this stuff that's out of place and put it back where it's supposed to be. The whole game makes life much funner and things just go by faster. Joy. So I continued with that into my career and tried to make whatever I was doing a lot funner than what people would usually do. I didn't really stick with processes that didn't work with me. I tried to make things just generally enjoyable to myself and everyone else I worked with. So when I started leading and managing a team, I brought that idea into the processes we use to manage development. So kind of how we worked, we modeled things around the idea of quests in a game. So you have something that needs to be done and your mighty heroes come along and they get rewarded for it. So that was kind of the basis of how we were going to build a process. So then we modeled everything that has to happen around that. So in our process, we of course have a project owner who should be setting priority of things. So our project owner, rather than saying do this first and that second, says this is worth 500 and this is worth 100. And each member of the team, so our developers, would claim part of that for creating the feature that the product owner decided. Our members of QA would get a part for actually testing it, making sure everything was kosher and getting it released out to production. And then once you get this bounty that came off all these features you implemented, you got to influence priority with it. So if you were really bothered with the code and needed to be refactored, or you wanted to try out that cool new library, that's what you did with your bounty. You said, hey, let's do this next sprint. And you got to pull things in that you really wanted to do as an individual. So there was kind of a give and take here. You can't just be giving away everything. So there were some rules to go along with this, and lots of them match up with Agile. So we don't want our PO just randomly changing the scope of our sprint. So if he wants to go add something right in the middle, we say it's going to cost you a hell of a lot to put that task in. In addition, we don't want nasty bugs getting out to production, so if you release something nasty to production, you get fined for it. We take back that bounty we gave you for finishing the feature and give it to whoever figured out the bug you put, and then fine you some on top of that just to make sure you don't do it again. The people that actually found things were rewarded because, good job, you found someone else's mistake. We took it for a spin, and each time we had a retrospective, we kind of discussed, is this working? What do we want to change? What do we want to add? What do we want to take away? And we tried to constantly improve it, make it something that worked for everyone. So the first thing we learned, and we learned a lot, was that too many rules is a bad thing. We all have enough on our minds in the first place, and just adding more rules and ways that you had to work wasn't a good thing. It's also not fun when your system works against you. If you have a sudden change in priority that's meaningful, you shouldn't be penalized for doing that, and we shouldn't be pushing you to not do it. We should react to the actual needs of the product and the customer. So to cope with this, we removed a lot of that because everyone says, this is BS. We also found that our PO actually did a pretty good job of prioritizing in the first place. If we needed refactoring, we'd say, hey, we need refactoring. Funny. And things just worked out well. So what happened is everyone just amassed fortunes of bounty and had nothing to do with it. We were like Scrooge McDuck style, skiing down the piles of bounty. So what we ended up doing is changing the system to make it something that's actually useful to people. So we actually got time off and got to kick back for amounts of bounty. The other unexpected thing we found is that by changing it to a system that was numeric and actually had value rather than just a priority list, the PO had to consider how much more valuable something was. So it wasn't 1, 2, it's this is worth 500, that's worth 50. So you really had a transparent view of what the priority was. And that's what we did. Still an evolving process. We check back each time we have a retrospective. If you like the bounty system, we're hiring. Questions?
Does anyone ever go negative? Like if they introduced a ton of bugs, are they only working on really low-hanging fruit?
So we never went negative, and as it turns out, the way bugs work, it was such a long time away from when you introduced it, it was hard to track back who introduced the bug. So the whole overhead of figuring out what was going on was just one of the reasons we ripped that out immediately. We had the special case for finding your own mess and fixing it. If you fixed it before like a reasonable amount of time, oops, we released that, got it fixed, off the books, no one cares.
You tried actually getting really hot.
Actually has come up. So surprisingly, the day off doesn't really work so well either because people have plenty of vacation and take their own days off. So we were looking at kind of new potential systems. And one of the ones that keeps coming up is a Chuck E. Cheese style wall of prizes. So we might give that one a go.
It sounds like you're already in